What's going on, guys? CEO here with week 8 of the NES. This week we are going up against Snapperkins and the Titletown Tyrantrums. They have a YouTube channel, so all the important links will be down in the description below. Before I get too far into this, I feel like I should let you guys know that I'm sick, so I'm probably not going to be as enthusiastic with my commentary in this episode. Long story short, Snapperkins and I kind of had issues like lining up in the middle of the week just because we were both busy. And then we battled yesterday on Sunday, and I was going to record everything yesterday and then completely felt like shit and wasn't really able to do anything. So I'm recording it now while I'm awake, I guess. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get into this. Mega-Pinsir is really scary. It's a very, very, very powerful late game cleaner. Quick attack return with aerialate boost does a lot of damage. Thundurus-Therian is kind of the only thing on my team that can take it on, especially if it gets a sword stance up or something. So I have to play around it pretty carefully. Mew is the definition of versatility. It was actually kind of something that I was looking at for my team, because if you go back to my draft recap, one of the things I was looking for in a Pokemon was versatility. We prepped very, 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 very hard for Mew. In fact, the Spiritomb that I have is like a direct counter to this Mew, pretty much. Or at least the more likely variants of Mew that I saw him bringing. We basically practiced against, I want to say, like 4 or 5 different Mew sets. I tried to just tell my assistant coach, Super Nerd, to go ham with his Mew sets. We ended up practicing with the Transform Choice Scarf set at some point, so that was cool. I just kind of have to prepare for as many things as I can with Mew. It's kind of impossible to prepare for everything, but I feel like I did a good job with the likely sets that I saw coming. Milotic's an issue. A bulky water that can eat the hits of Thundurus-Therian, more specifically, kind of does a lot to this team. Karen's my only real switch into it, but since Milotic gets Recover and I only get Wish, it can kind of stall me out if it needs to. And especially since it gets Marble Scale, I don't really want to Toxic it. Like, I will if I have to, but it's not the most ideal thing in the world. So I have to play very carefully around Milotic. Ironically enough, my most direct answer to it is actually my Victini, because I can't get Skull Burned, and I EV'd it, as you'll see, to kind of take it on a little bit better. Galvantula is also an issue. Sticky Webs hurts my team kind of a lot because a lot of it's grounded. Luckily my fastest thing isn't grounded, so it doesn't hurt it that much, and it's kind of like my most direct answer to it because he can't Thunder me, and Bug Buzz is resisted because I'm flying, and because I have HP flying, as you can see off to the left. He kind of just gets destroyed by it. But if he does just bring a Focus Sash set and get Sticky Webs up, it kind of puts a big hamper in my plans. I was thinking about bringing Magic Bounce, but I have Mega-Absol and Xatu that have Magic Bounce, and both don't really want to deal with Galvantula at all, so that was kind of pointless. I actually almost brought Xatu anyway, because this roster that you see actually wasn't the roster that I prepared for originally. I've been planning for this team for a little while, and until last Thursday, or at least that's when I saw it, I guess. He could have done it a couple days before then. But as of last Thursday, he actually had Mienshout as his second tier 3 pick instead of Honchkrow. And I almost brought Xatu anyway, and just tried to play around the Galvantula and then bring Xatu in to bounce Sticky Webs and potentially sweep, actually. But Honchkrow coming kind of put a plan in that, because Honchkrow kind of just destroys Xatu. So Honchkrow was really scary because, first of all, I didn't really even have that much time to prepare for it. Once I got to the end of the week, I was severely limited on how much I could actually edit the team, so I got a little bit of practice in against it. but Moxie, Choice Scarf, Moxie Life Orb, Moxie anything really is scary. So I gotta be very careful with that. Noivern outspeeds a significant amount of my team. Like, the only thing that really can outspeed it is if I get an agility up with some of my faster stuff. I don't think he's going to bring a Scarf variant. I think his Choice Specs variant is more likely. Just because it can do some damage to my team. But Karen's still a pretty reliable switch into it as long as I play it smart. I don't really see him bringing the Steelix at all, to be perfectly honest. It can set up rocks, and it's bulky, and it can actually hit fairly hard, but looking down his list, saw Skarmory and Roserade, which both, well, mainly Skarmory, I guess. I saw Skarmory, which does the job of Steelix pretty well, and is a little bit, I don't know, I'll get to it later, but long story short, I actually spent literally 0 time preparing for Steelix. Like, I looked at its stats and looked at its moveset and stuff, but I figured I had answers spread out across the team for it. That's all the prep I have for Steelix going on. Roserade's very, 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 very scary. And outside of Mew is actually probably the thing I've prepared for most on this team. I figured an offensive, like, Leaf Storm, Sludge Bomb, whatever other coverages gets, and Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam did a lot too, mainly just the Spiritomb, but I figured like some weird offensive variant would be good because it outspeeds a lot of my team and it can hit pretty hard. Vaporeon obviously doesn't match up very well against it, unless it's an offensive variant, in which case I can take a hit and fire it back pretty much. Breloom doesn't match up very well against it either. But yeah, I guess I should take this time to step aside and say I could have brought Miltank in, or I could have brought Miltank this week with Sap Sipper to kind of help me and give like a direct answer. But Miltank didn't really hit Roserade back at all, and outside of setting up Stealth Rocks, which would have been kind of helpful, it didn't really do very much this week, besides just sit there. So I opted not to bring it. You'll see how that affects the battle, I guess. Skarmory is a very, very, very fat wall. Sturdy makes it so it can guaranteed live for a turn and do whatever it wants to do. And if I let it sit here and just set up Stealth Rocks and Hazard Stack and start whirlwinding me and stuff, it can actually just like completely destroy my plans for this week. I have a couple of, like, I don't want to say gimmicky things, but I have a couple of things that he might not be expecting to be able to take it out, because I know it's going to be at least 2 hits to be able to take it out. So, yeah. Again, sorry this is taking fucking forever and it's not very good. My mind's all over the place right now. Slurpuff, oh my god, this is taking forever. Slurpuff is basically an unburdened sweeper. I've seen it as other stuff, but if he was going to be bringing it this week over anything else, it was going to be the unburdened set. So I prepared for it pretty well. And finally, this is, I would restart this, but I just don't care. Finally, it's Frostlass. It actually is very threatening to my team. I didn't prepare for it too much until like the end of my practice session, when I realized that it hits a very good speed tier for my team and actually has very good coverage against most of the threats that I've been bringing somewhat reliably. So I kind of expected it to come, and do I even have, okay, I do have my notebook. So at this point I predicted some combination of Mew, Milotic, Galvantula, Mega-Pinsir, and then the last 2 were kind of up in the air. I assumed Roserade and Honchkrow, but Noivern also fit well. I don't know, but I noticed during team building this week that he brought some combination of Mew, Milotic, Galvantula, and Mega-Pinsir like pretty much every week. If not every week, it was pretty much every week. So I kind of built with those 4 specifically in mind, and then kind of teched in stuff here and there to deal with the other ones. So starting off, we have a 10 minutes into the fucking video. Starting off, we have a Focus Sash Thundurus-Therian, basically meant to take a hit, nasty plot. If it outspeeds, it can just literally destroy his team. And this is the coverage to do it. During the battle, it actually did have 252 and I believe 4 special defense, just because those AVs weren't messed up in the battle. I had checked. So yeah, my next thing that I brought this week was something to specifically counter the Galvantula or Skarmory lead, while also kind of dealing with the rest of his team. I had to bring V-Create this week to do the damage, like to guarantee the damage to Galvantula, Steelix, or Skarmory, and just be able to handle it. But I didn't want to take the drop, so I used a White Herb this week, which, if you don't know what that is, it restores all lowered stats to 0. So basically, when I take when I do the V-Create and my defense, special defense, and speed all drop, the White Herb will restore it back to normal, so I don't take more damage, and I'm back up to being the speed that I need to be. And also, as a heads up, I speed crept specific stuff, but I'm not feeling well enough to try to remember what it is. But I did speed creep stuff to outspeed what it needed to outspeed, and if stuff just naturally outsped me, it didn't really matter to me, I guess. Yeah, but between the combination of Quick Attack, Will-O-Wisp, and V-Create, I can basically counter any lead that he has, and I can't, like, if he brings a Focus Sash Galvantula, I can't stop him from getting the sticky webs up this way, but I can stop him from doing anything else but getting the sticky webs up if he does that. Similarly, if he brings Skarmory and sets up rocks turn 1, there's nothing I can do to prevent him from getting the rocks up, but I can either Willow V-Create or V-Create Quick Attack or something to guarantee that he only gets 1 layer of stuff up. And then you can tell that I only really needed these 3 for this week if I'm bringing Quick Attack Victini, but I figured that might be a nice surprise kill if he brings Galvantula and thinks that he's going to be able to get like a big Thunder off on me or something. I don't know if I've ever really seen a Victini with priority before, but it seemed like it seemed like it would work this week. So Scizor is actually going to kind of be extremely important this week. The Agility Baton Pass set is something that I've tried to bring before, but he actually has enough walls on his team that I can take advantage of it this week if I bring it in at the right time. Akaberry will let me live basically anything on his team but a Noivern's Flamethrower, so I have to be pretty careful about that, and once I get an agility up I can pass it into something, ideally my Thundurus or my Breloom. Victini also wouldn't be a terrible option, but the Thundurus and Breloom are the main targets here. And then just kind of do the damage that I need to do. If he does get hazards up, I brought Defog over Roost this week to try to get those away. Spoilers, I have 2 Focus Sash users this week, so keeping rocks up off the field were pretty important. And Bullet Punch is mostly for Slurpuff. And chip damage to other stuff too, I guess, but it was mainly designed for Slurpuff. And again, I speed grab for this for something, but I'm not feeling well enough to remember what it is. So, like I said, like 10 minutes ago or whatever, the Spiritomb was meant to 100% counter pretty much any variant of Mew. Even if it was like a scary Calm Mind or Sword Stance set. I was actually more prepared to take on the Sword Stance set, as you can see, but Infestation is a Gen 6 move, if you don't know. That's basically a bug-type Whirlpool move, where the opponent can't switch out and it just constantly gets damaged. I actually tried to run an Infestation Curse protect set, but it didn't do enough damage, and since Mew gets Roost or whatever it wants to get for recovery, it didn't really work that well. So Infestation and Toxic racks up pretty significant damage, and once he gets down to about 50%, I can just kill him off with a Sucker Punch. Yeah, I wish I could say I brought this thing for more than just dealing with Mew, but it was pretty much my hard Mew counter while being able to answer Mew with stuff like around the team. I was pretty convinced he was going to bring Mew, so I was just like, well, I might as well bring a Mew counter. I'm going to go ahead and say right now that this is probably the set on the team of the week that I was like least comfortable with. I originally had Grip Claw on here, which I guess I can change now, but that lets you, it lets Infestation always last 7 turns instead of only lasting 4 to 5, but the extra damage didn't really matter that much. Like, it made Sucker Punching a little bit easier, I guess, but it didn't really matter in the long run. But the set pretty easily seemed to deal with Mew. It also kind of helped with Milotic a little bit if other stuff on my team was down, I guess. So it's mainly just meant to trap and be annoying. So for the first time, I'm not bringing Wish on Vaporeon at all. I wanted to bring something to get rid of status and stuff instead, because as you can see, the Thundurus and to a lesser extent the Victini and Breloom are kind of going to be the stars this week. I didn't bring Scald because Ice Beam just hit everything, and Scald didn't really hit anything but the Steelix, I think. Yeah, the only thing it hit super effectively was the Steelix, and I was pretty convinced it wasn't coming, so I was like, well, why not bring Ice Beam and hit all of the flying types that he has instead. Baton Pass is there mostly for initiative. I'm obviously not like trying to pass a Wish or anything. But yeah, and like I said, Toxic is on here mostly for if I get in against Milotic and have nothing else. It's really not a very good answer, but it's something, I guess. And finally we have our second Focus Sash user of the week with Rock Tomb, Mach Punch, Bullet Seed, and Swords Dance. I don't really have a ton of things I can set a Swords Dance up on, but if I can get a Swords Dance up and predict a Rock Tomb on one of his faster flying types, I should be able to outspeed, and if not, a Mach Punch will still do very, very significant damage. The Focus Sash is obviously meant to just take a hit and revenge kill something if I have to. And Swords Dance Bullet Seed is mostly to take care of Milotic if it starts getting up, or if it starts setting up or gets something passed to it. Because I was pretty scared of a Baton Pass like setup Mew. Because if Milotic gets any bulkier than it actually is, it's really hard to take down. So I wanted to try to hit it as many different ways as I could. So this is by far my longest team builder, and I think it's just because I was sick and rambling a lot, but I'm just going to get to the battle now. I'll see you guys soon. Alright, so if you watch my team builder, you know this is not the team I prepared for. I was not expecting him to bring all of his flying threats in one battle against me. I know I have a Breloom, but outside of that I didn't really think I was that flying weak. You can see as he did not bring Mew or Milotic, two threats I very heavily prepared for. My Spiritomb's a little bit more useless now than it was before. And I am absolutely kicking myself for not bringing rocks, because 1, 2, 3, 4 things on his team would have taken at least super effective damage from it, and Pinsir actually would have taken quad damage after it Mega evolved. So I am livid that I did not prepare well for this week. I'm gonna actually pause this really quick because I'm not done talking yet. So I don't really know what to do for a lead this week. My original plan was to lead Victini because I thought he was going to bring Mew or Galvantula. That's what ended up happening in a lot of my practice games because they both led very well against me. But seeing as how neither was brought this week, it didn't really make quite as much sense to lead Victini. while it would have matched up well against Pinsir, Roserade, Frostlass kind of, it would have been a mixed bag, I guess, and Steelix kind of. I didn't really want to risk it because it was pretty important as either a late game cleanup or to take out one of those Mons. Probably Steelix, because guess who didn't prepare for Steelix at all? That was 100% on me, but every game I had, I just kind of assumed Skarmory was going to be better. And since I assumed Skarmory was going to be better, I didn't assume that he was going to be bringing all of his other flying types. So Victini's gimmick of Quick Attack is pretty much useless now, seeing as how it was meant to take down Galvantula and Skarmory, and neither are here. So I don't really know what he's going to lead. I assume it's probably going to be Frostlass, because I assume it's going to be a Suicide Spike lead, so I try to counter lead and lead with Spiritomb, and unfortunately he just ends up leading Noivern and frisking my leftovers. Kind of glad at this point that I switched from Grip Claw to leftovers, because at least it shows that I'm a defensive Spiritomb that's like just kind of a generic defensive Spiritomb rather than being a specific trapping set. Again, the trapping set was meant 100% for Mew. At this point, I'm kind of thinking it could do a little bit of work, I guess, against Honchkrow or Frostlass, potentially Roserade if I have to. But I don't know. I decided to lead Spiritomb because if he stays in with something that wasn't going to be a Noivern, it would have worked. Predicting a U-turn, I just go ahead and go into Vaporeon because it can take anything else also. He goes into Roserade here. I don't know what kind of Roserade this is, but I know I don't want to take a Leaf Storm. So I'm just going to double into Spiritomb Scizor and hope that he doesn't predict and go for an HP Fire. He goes for an Energy Ball instead, which actually looks like it does pretty significant damage, seeing as how I quad resist. I calced this, and it actually was too high for Expert Bolt damage, but too low for Specs damage. I don't know if I was calcing weird or not, but spoilers, this thing's actually not choiced. I play like it is all game, but I'm just going to go and let you know now that it's not choiced. I don't really know what I did weird in my calcs to make this mess up, but because I calculated this and saw that it was too high for expert belt damage, I thought he was just some weird spread where he was choice specs but like not fully max special attack. So I thought I was going to be able to prey on that a little bit. I was trying to think of what he would double into here to counter Scizor, and since I figured he wasn't going to go for an HP Fire here, I figured the next bet was probably going to be Steelix, so I went ahead and doubled into Victini to try to get the upper hand here, because like I said, I don't have anything for Steelix. I run the calcs and realized that Earthquake is actually going to do a pretty significant amount of damage. I could switch into Thundurus here, but I don't want to risk him being some like super offensive set and having Rock Slide and then just completely nullifying my Thundurus right away, because Thundurus is going to be very important in this game. So I decided to kind of take a middle ground play here, I guess, and just go for a Will-O-Wisp. I brought Will-O-Wisp specifically for Mew because I could burn it and it couldn't synchronize it back to me because I'm a fire type. I wanted to be able to 1v1 the Mew, or at least threaten it out a little bit more, but Willow ended up coming pretty clutch here because he just goes for an Earthquake, and instead of it being a 2-hit KO, it's now a 3-hit KO. Yeah, so at this point I just try to do the damage that I can do because I don't really have a lot of direct answers to this thing. If you watch my team builder, you saw that I have a white herb, so all of those defense drops and stuff that come from V-Create are gone for this turn, which allows me to live again. And at this point I realize that he's probably going to switch, because although an Earthquake's going to kill me, he knows that I can kill him with a V-Create. And while he can come in and just clean me off with Honchkrow here, I guess, I didn't think that he was going to do that. I realized after calcing that an Earthquake was not actually going to do that much to Scizor or Breloom. So I thought this was a decent time for me to set up. It wasn't going to be like the perfect time for me to set up because it was very early into the game. So I didn't want to go into Scizor right away because the agility passing set was kind of more meant for a late game cleanup over just nuking shit early in the game. So I go into Breloom on the off chance that he switches out, I get a free attack off on something. Likely a Rock Tomb, honestly, with how much coverage he has. And if he stays in, it's not going to do very much damage. I can go for a Swords Dance and kill this thing off with a Bullet Seed, or just go for Rock Tomb, predicting something else to come in. He stays in and goes for an Earthquake. And it's at this point that I remember that I'm Focus Sashed, and this is the 1 week that I don't have Wish on Vaporeon. So I kind of just screwed myself over here by just rushing into Breloom right away. I'm a little annoyed that I did that, to be honest, because then I broke my Sash. So I just go ahead and go in here and double into Scizor, probably a turn too late, honestly. If he's going to stay in an Earthquake, it's only going to do like 10%, and at this point I can get an Agility up. It's just a bad misplay for me early in the game, because he just goes into Noivern and frisks my Occaberry. If you watch my team builder, you know that even with an Occaberry, Noivern still OHKOs me with a Flamethrower. I don't know if he's probably just going to go for the safe play and go for it. If he predicts me, then good on him, but I need to double into Karen and take that pretty well. At this point, I know he can't stay in. He's choice some kind, so I just Baton Pass out and scare him out with Victini. I'm going to speed it up through the turns. Oh, okay, I did not mean to speed through this turn, but that's okay. So, after all the doubling, the Steelix comes back in, and I think I rushed this turn, if I'm just being honest. I didn't really think about this turn. I saw the kill in front of me and just went for the kill. I forgot I had already used my White Herb, so at this point I was pretty vulnerable. The Steelix is gone, but the Steelix wasn't really doing that much. And now in comes the Honchkrow. And if you know anything about Honchkrow, you know to not give it a free setup. And sure enough, I gave it a free setup. And at this point, I'm just like, well, I guess I have a Scarf Thundurus if I need it, or not a Scarf Thundurus, I have a Sash Thundurus if I need it, and I have a Trapping Spiritomb and Priority on Breloom. Like, those are my three options for this thing now that I'm gonna die, pretty much. I predict him to go for Pursuit here, actually, because I think that me switching out here is pretty predictable. It's a 50-50 between Sucker Punch and Pursuit, and if I get it wrong, I die, and if I get it right, I die. So there's not really any reason for me to like switch out. Victini would have been very nice for Roserade, but at this point I accept that it's gonna die. Just go for a Bolt Strike to get damage, nearly kill it. It goes for the Pursuit, and it goes down to 4. And I'm like, okay, cool. This may not be as big of a threat as I thought. I'm not really tripping about it too much at this point, because while it got a Moxie boost, it's very, very, very close to dying. So I'm not really tripping about that. I go into Spiritomb here. Try to go for a Sucker Punch, predicting him to Brave Bird me, because it's going to OHKO. But instead he Roosts, and at that point I'm like, oh fuck. For some reason, my assistant coach and I both didn't like think to ever put Roost on one of our Life Orb sets. I don't know, like this week from top to bottom was just kind of weird in general. I should have put Shadow Sneak on there, because if I would have put Shadow Sneak I would have outsped. It would have been resisted, but because it's Stab, it should have done at least 4%. I didn't run that calc, but I have to imagine that it would have done 4% to a Honchkrow, who doesn't have very good defenses. So he just roosts back up to full. I realize at this point that this Honchkrow is a serious issue, and just decide to go for Infestation. I'm kind of wishing that I would have brought Will-O-Wisp on Spiritomb. I'm not 100% sure if it actually learns it, to be honest, but since it's a ghost type, I kind of assume that it does. But I go for Infestation because I need to trap this thing, and I need to start getting residual damage off on it. And at this point, it's kind of just a bunch of 50-50s of me trying to guess if he's going to Sucker Punch, if he's going to Brave Bird, or if he's going to Roost. So I need to wear this thing down to a little under half so Breloom can come in and take it out. Luckily, Infestation's doing the fixed amount of damage. On this turn, I tried to predict him going for the Roost here, actually, because if you were paying attention to his pattern, he didn't really want to let himself get down below here. So I predicted him to roost and actually went for a Toxic there. If I would have went for a Sucker Punch, it might have actually killed, to be honest. But unfortunately, I was not good enough to make that play. So Spiritomb goes down, and this thing's now at ×2. So I'm like, fuck. Is this thing just gonna run through my team? Because I could go into Thundurus here and fire off a Thunderbolt, but it's gonna bring me down to my Sash, at which point Mega-Pinsir can just come in and quick attack, and I probably get 6-0'd, which doesn't sound very much fun to me. So I make a pretty risky play here and go into Breloom. I calced it, and Mach Punch had a minimum 42% chance, or minimum damage of 42%, so it was guaranteed to kill. But my main thing here was, if he Sucker Punches predicting my Mach Punch, I think he actually gets the priority first, and Sucker Punch had a pretty good chance to kill. I don't think it was a 100% chance, but it had a pretty good chance to kill. So I kind of actually had to count on him being a little greedy here and going for the Brave Bird, which does like 600% damage or something like that to Breloom. My previous dumb play of switching into Steelix for no fucking reason now made this play a million times harder, because if I would have just had a Focus Sash, it wouldn't have really mattered. I could have literally just gone for Mach Punch and not stressed it at all. But because I am now at slightly less than 100%, I now have to play this game, which really fucking sucks. Luckily, I win that part of the game, at least. Finally make a good play in this game, and I'm able to take down Honchkrow, who was a very, very, very scary threat on this team. He brings in Pinsir, and at this point I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that Breloom's not really doing anything anymore. Its priority is completely ignored. Oh, whoops, Steelix has been dead. Its priority is completely ignored by Frostlass. It's quad resisted by Pinsir, and it's regularly resisted by Roserade and Noivern. Rock Tomb would be nice, but because I'm at a Sash, I'm not going to be outspeeding anything left on his team. By the way, he just brought like all the speed this week, and it was pretty bad. But at this point, I've resigned myself to the fact that Breloom's probably going to die. If he gets greedy here and goes for a Swords Dance, I can actually OHKO him with Rock Tomb, so I decided to stay in and go for the Rock Tomb. He just goes for a Quick Attack and kills me, which is a good play. I don't know if he actually even needed to Quick Attack, but I think he wanted to play it safe in case I was Scarfed. I don't think a Scarfed Mach Punch would have actually done anything, to be honest, but that's okay. Oh, whoops. That's not the thing that's dead, that's the thing that killed. Sorry. Again, if you skipped through my really long team builder, I'm really not feeling well this week, so this video is kind of all over the place. But this is the best recording I have so far. So, Thundurus finally gets to hit the field without taking damage, so at this point I'm feeling very confident in just firing off a Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt does massive damage to pretty much everything on his team except Roserade, but if he comes in with the Roserade, I also have HP Flying, which should be a 2-hit KO, pretty much. So I just decided to go for a Thunderbolt and fire off massive damage here. Actually finally get some offensive footing here in this game. He goes back and finds out that I'm Focus Sashed. Do a decent amount of damage, and at this point I probably am going to make the biggest misplay of the season, and I don't know why I did it, and every time I watch this battle I get mad at this upcoming play. But so at this point I have Vaporeon sitting in the back, and I know that he knows that I have Vaporeon sitting in the back, so I don't want to actually just go straight into Vaporeon. I don't think he actually has anything that can take on my Vaporeon, but I also don't want him to double into Roserade and just get a bunch of momentum here. So I thought that he was going to be trying to save his Noivern for when he could get in against Scizor or something, because I didn't really see a ton of answers on his team to Scizor left. So I actually predict him to double here after taking the Thunderbolt not that well, and decide to go for an HP Flying and he just decides to smartly drop a Draco and do a ton of damage to me. I wasn't really tripping it at the time, but now that I'm below 25%, a Pinsir quick attack kills me. If I would have just stayed healthy here, like, there was absolutely nothing that Pinsir could have actually done to me. And I feel like I would have been in a much better position at this point in the battle, but now I have a, like, I think my Thundurus is down to 24%, my Scizor is down to, like, half, I think. And Vaporeon's still pretty healthy, but its only offensive move is Ice Beam. So he goes into Frostlass here, and I know I can't take an Ice Beam, so I have to make the play into Scizor. He makes a nice play and goes for Shadow Ball, gets a crit, which unfortunately sucks because I don't have Defog. If I would have had Defog, or I don't have Roost, sorry. If I would have had Roost, this battle actually would have been much different at this point, because I could have tried to scout out what this Frostlass was going to do a little bit more. But since it's a huge issue, I just have to go for the Bullet Punch. I do a decent amount of damage, but then Bullet Punch gets disabled and he goes for Destiny Bond. Also, I don't know why this is suddenly lagging so much, but I'm just going to keep going. So, I can't stay in a Bullet Punch again, obviously, because it's disabled. He's Destiny Bonded, so I can't kill him, even if I had another offensive move. Like, if I would have killed him, my Scizor would have went down, and then I had no way to potentially outspeed the rest of his team. I debated very, very hard about just going for the agility here, because at this point, my options for winning this game were quickly dwindling away. But I still hadn't actually seen very much on this Frostlass moveset. And at this point, Vaporeon was looking pretty useless to me, so I just decided to double into it. I end up scouting for the HP Fire, so it's a good thing I didn't stay in, because even at 30%, an HP Fire from a Frostlass would have killed. I'm actually a little curious to see if I could have potentially lived an HP Fire with the Octoberry, if he didn't crit the Shadow Ball, but at that point I would have been playing off of him, like, I don't know, it just wouldn't have been like a great play for me, I guess, I don't know. So I actually predicted him to stay in and go for a Destiny Bond there, just because my Vaporeon was still pretty bulky. I tried to counter that with a Toxic, because if you don't know, Destiny Bond doesn't work if you die to Toxic damage. It only works if you die to, like, direct damage done to you. He makes a good play and doubles into Roserade, and at this point I'm, like, very, very, very on my back foot. So I just have to go for an Ice Beam. I have to eat that. I know it's going to do a ton of damage, and at that point I'm like, oh, cool. He's Assault Vest. Because there's no way that Ice Beam should have only done that much. Like, Ice Beam easily should have done over 50%, which should have let me go into Thundurus T and get a cleanup kill here. But because it only did that much, I knew that I lost. At this point, I have to hope that my Vaporeon spread is wrong and just try to go for the agility sweep here. But it's not. I'm just going to go ahead and let the rest of this battle play out, because there's not really a ton I can do. I end up getting a cleanup kill here, but then he just goes in to clean up with Thundurus with Pinsir, and ends up getting a 2-0. So there are a couple of things I could have done very differently this game, and could have potentially changed things. I don't mean to sound like the Tyrantrums didn't do anything to win this game, because obviously they prepared very well for this game. They did a lot of stuff to throw me off. I actually did prepare against a team that had this many flying types, but both me and my assistant coach agreed that I had multiple ways of setting up Stealth Rocks, so we didn't think that he was actually going to do that. I talked to Snapper after the battle, and he acknowledged that, but realized that he just needed to kind of make some different team building decisions, I guess, to keep his team building fresh. So props to him for realizing that, because I was actually kind of gonna prey on that this week. I feel like if he would have brought the team I prepared for, this would have been a very different battle. Because he didn't bring the team that I prepared for, I don't want to say I freaked out a little bit, but I definitely didn't play as well as I could have. I don't know if that's because I wasn't feeling well. I don't know if that's just because I got in my own head. I don't know if that's because he got in my head. I'm really trying hard to figure out what I did wrong here. I know that the big turning point in the battle was this turn right here where he went for the Draco and I took a massive amount of damage and went down to 24%. Because if I would have stayed, not even fully focus sashed, but if I would have just switched into Vaporeon there like I should have done, taken the hit that I needed to take and either went for the Ice Beam and saw that he was Assault Vest, or Baton passed out and went for Momentum. Either way, I would have been in a much better position for this battle. I don't know if I would have won because he did bring a different team that I prepared for, but it would have been a little closer and it would have allowed me to potentially win even despite the misplays from the earlier part of the battle. I also made a couple team building mistakes this game. I definitely should have, well, hindsight's 20/20, but bringing Roost over Defog would have been very nice for this battle. I thought he had a ton of hazard setting options, and I thought he was going to go for them. I don't actually know if Steelix had Stealth Rocks or if Frostlass had Spikes. So maybe it was a better decision to bring Defog than I thought it was, and I just wasn't, or it was too hyper offensive a game for him to actually sacrifice momentum to go for hazards. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the team that I built in terms of composition, but I'm not sure it was the right week to bring it. Like, Thundurus T obviously put in a shitload of work this week, and I could have probably still been okay if I would have played it properly. So I don't know. If you have any suggestions for me, please leave them down in the comments below. If you have any set building suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Next week we are going up against, I believe, Crazy and the Fletchlings, who are definitely one of the best teams in this league, both in terms of draft and battling ability. So I can't even talk anymore. I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit next week, I think. Take a note from Snapper's page, because I don't know, like, I can't even really say I'm super happy with how this week went, because I feel like I got beat in the team building, the playing, and, like, I don't know, I got beaten pretty much every way possible, and it hurts a little bit, but I will try to rebound from it. So I'm going to stop rambling now and go lay down, because I really don't feel well. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.